that, Colin has kindly agreed, everyone, to allow us to record this session, so we will be able to publish it afterwards. Um, so we've had quite a lot of talk recently about the technical side of photography, and last week I was saying, let's get back a little bit to the creative side, and very fortunately we had a speaker lined up who can do just that. And Colin has got a lot of internationally acclaimed creative work in his portfolio, and it fits very well with our intention to move back to more of the creative side. So he's going to talk to us today about his ongoing projects and some of his flower photography. And Colin is a member of the Royal Photographic Society, so we're very honoured to have you here, Colin. He sits on a number of RPS distinction panels, judges on behalf of a lot of international clubs and organisations, has an absolute alphabet of acronyms behind his name, which I won't embarrass him with now. But what he has asked is if you can hold your questions until the end, then he'll address them in a Q&A session. So you don't forget your questions. If you want to pop those in the chat, then do so, and we'll either remind you that you were going to ask that question at the end, or we'll ask it on your behalf, whichever you prefer. So without further ado, I will hand over to Colin, and Colin, it's all yours. Thank you.
Yep, I'm just going to share the screen. This is where the fun begins. Try to remember what to. I'll start off with that one. Right. Hello, everybody. I take it you can see my first picture.
Yes, we can.
Is it? I'm talking to Ray. Ray, you see the? Okay, then we'll just Nick. Okay, all right. Forget my internet connection. Just hope it goes all right. But yeah, basically a very informal talk. No illusions of grandeur. I just I enjoy my photography, and I like helping other people. So that's the sort of my thinking. So hopefully I'm not going to blind you with science tonight, and hopefully to give you some ideas. But I say it's a very laid back talk, as you'll probably gather later on. And apologies for some of my humour. You may have to sort of think half an hour and suddenly realise what I was trying to say. But so basically, I've been raising funds for the love of scrub, and I talk about this at the end of the talk. It's just something that, given the circumstances at the moment, I just wanted to help. Again, haven't raised a vast amount of funds for them, but I say every little bit helps, and I just ask clubs just to make a donation, what they seem fit for my talk. Okay, then. So that's me with my qualifications, and as you see, as Ray said, quite a few. And obviously, note my. I'm very pleased to have the sort of the previous two, so the last two in the list, the HSBC and the Asda, added to my list, especially during the lockdown. Okay, then I said, basically, qualifications are a very personal thing. I mean, I don't know what half of them mean, really. So, I have to sort of look back and try and think. But say it's taken me over sort of 25 years to get from my first one in 1993 right up to a couple of years ago. But like I say, it's been ongoing. It's always given me something to work for. But probably the two most important, obviously, gaining my fellowship in 1993 and also gaining the bottom line, second one in the APAGB for services to photography, and they're probably the most two important things. The last qualification, the EF IAP Diamond 3 is for entering exhibitions, and up to last year there was only 3 people actually held this. Now I think there's a grand number of 5 people hold this in the United Kingdom. So, you know, I was pleased to be one of the early sort of forerunners. But this really sort of sums up my qualification. As you can see, takes lousy photograph, but is an absolutely whiz getting letters after his name. And this is what you do. Ray said about being a technical talk. I would show you some ideas, but my idea is to keep things simple. But this shows you sort of how I envisage my images. I'm a happy snapper. I love taking photographs. I got thousands and thousands of, probably millions now of photographs, and I use a few of them occasionally. So they're all filed away in my memory. So and often pictures don't link in at the time of taking. I'll take one photograph, a month later I'll take another photograph and think, oh yeah, I'll go back a month. So this is what you do. Photograph, say we live at Carterton near the base at RF Rise Norton, and this was taken at Ducklington near Whitney. We go to a lot of country events, yeah, just on our doorstep, and that's why I get probably most of my photographs. So again, this is just a country event, nothing special with the photograph. Then we're in Malta a few years later. I took this photograph and I saw this gentleman sort of thinking, okay, at the time he was probably thinking of the poster, but I thought, yeah, what can I do? I know what I'll do. So I combined the 2 images, and that was it. So if you look back, he actually hasn't moved an inch in the picture, and I've just worked my montage around him. But basically, my pictures evolve out of an idea. I call it my gardening technique. I hate gardening, but my attitude for gardening, if there's a hole, I'll put something in it. I do this with my montages. So this is just a photograph in the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford. So that's how my original idea. I thought there's a lot of spaces around it. So what do I do? Get a girl, look back, I took a photograph in London, an event, and yeah, she looked quite good on an escalator going up. So that's the sort of the starting point for the image. Then I add a sky and a base to the picture. So straight away you can see it's starting to sort of build up. So what do you do next? Yeah, down at the bottom, I need something else. I'll put an aircraft coming down the land. Okay. And then still not happy with what I'm doing, I'll add a bird on a stick, which is very popular in a competition. But then there's only sort of one area now that's sort of really empty, and that's the top left. So what shall I put in there? Hot air balloon. Okay, we're nearly there, but just needs something else around it. So what should we do? Just put some birds around it. So, you know, that completes the image. But also some of my images, although they're creative, they can look very realistic. This is 2 photographs, basically, one in the cloisters in Gloucester Cathedral, and the girl was taken at an event called Comic Con that I will actually talk about later on. But this is a rare occasion when I had an idea before I went somewhere. Going to America on holiday, and we thought we knew where there was a petrol pump museum, and we thought, yeah, let's go down and have a look. So took photographs there, and then I knew basically that's what I wanted in the foreground. Then I gradually built a backdrop for the picture. Something I will mention now, without being too technical, if you want to do a cutout or a montage of, say, a car, in this case, a petrol pump, go all the way round the item. So there's nothing worse than getting home, you've got a front 3/4 of a car, and you're putting a montage together, and you want the rear view of the car, and you haven't got that. Even Photoshop won't do that for you. So just if you get an idea, just say take as many photographs as possible at different angles. So steampunk. I'll read this out to you. With a backdrop of either Victorian England or American Wild West, steampunk is a subgenre of science fiction or science fantasy that incorporates technology and aesthetic design inspired by 19th century industrial steam powered machinery. Again, it's say if you want to call them a movement, a group of people, but it's becoming more and more popular now, more events held around the country now. And this is some of the characters. I mean, what defines some of these characters are the glasses, obviously the say the Edwardian clothing, and the gearing. So as you can see, this young lady uh, with just her, again, you might call it steampunk hat, but with these sort of glasses on the top as well. But then with some of these steampunk characters, they like to have sort of weapons, could be bows and arrows or even guns. And most of the time, it's equipment that they've actually built themselves. And this is the link to the Midwest with the sort of steampunk movement. I thought I got one photograph. Let's do a similar one. And this is an advantage working, doing montages. Once you've got a cutout of a person, then you might think, yeah, it doesn't look right in that subject, because you've got to. You can then put that person in any backdrop, almost similar to what you're doing with Zoom today with the backdrop. And again, coming up with ideas. I had this girl you saw just now, and you saw the person on the left before. So I wanted them together. And when I started doing it, he looked a bit flat. And I thought, yeah, what I do, I'll convert him into a Banksy type character on the wall. And here's a group of these steampunk people. And again, having them as cutouts, you can rescale them and put them wherever you want, actually in the picture. And the backdrop here is a narrow gauge railway south of San Francisco. And another one of the characters called Ben, wonderful character, almost a very good actor as well. And I do admit this is probably one of the most way out pictures that you'll see of mine today. And the only problem with my way out pictures, basically, it's not deep in meaning why I do them, but a judge will analyze, say, well, you've done this because of that, and you've done that because of another reason. Well, that's great, because I didn't have an idea why I did it. And here, and also say I meant putting characters in different backdrops as well, that I mentioned earlier. The problem with this is that the backdrop, I've got some yellow lines appearing on my screen that shouldn't be there, but we'll forget about that at the moment. The backdrop, in fact, on this is the in fact, the best part of the picture. Now, I have got a problem now, folks. I'm getting some lines. Are you, Ray, are you seeing some yellow lines on your?
Yes, I am. Is anyone annotating their screen or anything? It shouldn't be like this, but do you want to stop the share and start again?
I wouldn't. Yes, please, if you don't mind a second. If not, we'll just have to. I
Yeah,
don't know what's causing it. So
stop the share and restart it. See if that clears it.
okay then. So I'll be with you in a couple of minutes, folks. I'll just go probably straight in and see if
Yeah.
what I will have to do. I'll have to jump some of the. It's gone straight in. That's okay. It's cleared. So sorry about that, folks. But now it's actually cleared it again. And okay. So again, with these steampunk characters, they wear various clothing and very vibrant that you saw earlier. And again, with this one, I've used a sort of splatter effect just to sort of blend really the characters in, to just to make it more of a sort of painterly effect to the picture. Now I can't advance it, so okay. I think I might. Yeah, it's gone on again. So a few gremlins. Sorry about that tonight, folks. But anyway, okay then. Women again, young ladies at the sort of steampunk event. But the thing is, with a lot of these sort of reenactors, if you want to call, they like being photographed. But I normally adopt a fairly sort of relaxed attitude, just sort of chat them up basically before I sort of go in with my sort of fairly close up lens anyway. And this is a technique. We were saying about sort of technicalities, using a very shallow depth of field. Normally, a lot of people now just sort of take exposure on their camera, just press the button, and the picture normally works. But this is using the smallest of aperture, what's called a very shallow depth of field. So you're just focusing on the nearest point, and it's putting the rest of information at the back out of focus. Okay, then. A warning list for people. I know you all look very comfortable at home, but these images may confuse you or even damage your health. For those with a nervous disposition, please look away now, or in this case, just switch your monitor off. This is taken locally. Say we live in Carson. Normally when we get some bad weather, I go out with my camera, and this one day I was just photographing post box, anything that was red to go well with the snow, and suddenly saw this critter go herring by very, very fast. But the thing was, we live not very far from the Cotswold Wildlife Park, and I think it's probably just heading back for its lunch. But also, you know, it's coincidence really. The following week we were up in London, heard this noise on the underground, and we heard this critter playing. But really, the moral of this is, if you know, once the lockdown's over with completely, you can go up to London, go down on the underground, take one of your pets and train them to play a musical instrument. Because the Americans at the time were putting loads of money into its hat. Also, wandering down Oxford Street one day, and okay, taking photographs in shop windows as one does, and suddenly saw this mannequin being moved around. But the only problem with this is sort of putting it out to camera clubs. You thought, wow, it's a bit risky. Or also, if you're sending it out to an exhibition, finding a title for the image. Also, I said we go to a lot of reenactments, and the advantage of these reenactments, they are very accurate in the way they have their roles in whatever soldiers or what event they're playing in. But what's nice, with a wide angle lens, you can get up really close to people and sort of change the sort of proportion in the pictures if you actually wanted to. But also going back to the sort of steampunk idea, this actually started with a doll, really sort of tatty looking doll that we actually bought back from America at the time of Halloween a few years ago. And I got the doll at home, and I thought, yeah, I want to sort of make a sort of steampunk thing out of it. So I looked around for some old gears, found one, put it in its eye, and then fitted a suitable backdrop to the picture. Also, say we go to America quite often, and again, we like the ghost towns. And what's magical about the ghost town? You just go down a road, probably nobody's been there for a long, long time. So you go up to these, you know, look through the window, because they're all very sort of very secure. And when you look through the window, you just never know what you're actually going to see. Also, going back to the boxes I said earlier about the telephone boxes, and this was at the same day you saw the other critter. But again, I think it must have, you know, got lost. It must have escaped from the Cotswold Wildlife Park, and I think it's just, you know, wanted to make a phone call home and say, you know, come and collect me. But also, say where we live, although we don't live that far from you, this event, the Seven Ball, went to again a couple of years ago for the very first time, which is, you know, very interesting to see. But just as we were packing up, we heard a bit of noise, and obviously this is one, you know, probably the tail ender going along. But the thing is, remember, when you go to any events, don't put your camera away, because you never know actually what's going to happen. But also, what I like about some animals that they look very human-like sometimes. And again, we were heading along the Oregon coast, and we suddenly, I was taking a photograph of this lighthouse on the left-hand side, and this critter suddenly stuck his head up in front of me, and I couldn't. And it was a bit noisy, and I could not put any money on it, but it sounded like if it said sorry. You can see the expression on its face. So, sorry, and it disappeared. And it's just amazing sometimes. But also, say, we don't live very far from the old mines at Cirencester, and the old a water park, sorry. And again, I used to that's my George. I do deep sea diving as well as another hobby of mine. And this is George, my friend. And we were going down one day. He said, "Oh, can I take some photographs of him?" And again, this is what I did. So just as again, started to take some photographs of him. These horses, I heard this noise, and these horses suddenly went by. The thing is, this wasn't actually far from the race course at Cheltenham. I think they obviously must have been late for the actual big race. But again, I sound very sort of relaxed with my photography, and this picture is a record shot to a certain extent because it really annoys me how in modern times the architects were allowed to, and the planners were allowed to let a monorail go through such a beautiful building. Think of, they were building a new housing estate along the River Severn, and they had to have access. And that was the thing, is if we build our houses for you in South Wales, then we've got to have an access, so that they were allowed to do this. And I think that's such a pity. Also, so my wife Audrey is interested in cake making, and we go up to the Birmingham, to the NEC every year for the Big Cake International, and it's an art form that what they do with their cakes now. And this character, Edward Scissorhand, is actually made a cake. It's again about sort of 5 foot high, but it's so realistic, and they're just amazing to actually see. I'm also into zombies as well. Probably you'll gather that later on by my comments on my photography. And again, we were in London one day, and there was a group of zombies doing a film. They were from Holland, and the thing is, if you see the people filming, just wait. Or my trick is to just get by the camera, sort of low down, so you're not in anybody's way. And while they're actually filming, you can actually get your photograph. And again, some more zombies now. This time in the backdrop, you see as Coventry Cathedral. I mentioned earlier about Comic Con. Basically, Comic Con is come from America, based originally on, as it says, the comics. Now it's gone into the sort of film industry, and characters dress up to their sort of favorite people. And now it's big in this country. There's events, two biggest events, or two areas of London a couple of times a year, and the NEC in Birmingham a couple of times a year for the Comic Con event. Thousands of people turn up to see it. In this case, this is Harley Quinn from at the time Suicide Squadron. And if you actually go to the event, you'll see probably half a dozen of these Harley Quinn lookalikes. And once again, they love being photographed, so that's a big advantage. And also, Planet of the Apes characters, right across the range. So virtually, it's wall-to-wall people or characters to actually photograph. Also, again, so we go to London quite often, and we were on Charing Cross Station just watching the world go by, and we saw these two nuns, sort of wandering by. I say most of my pictures are taken with a sort of 24mm lens, really close up. But this particular time, I was using a telephoto lens, so they didn't know I'd taken the photograph. But just at a point of interest, they weren't carrying a gun at the time. I've added that, obviously. But also where we live, not far from Farringdon, which is halfway between Oxford and Swindon. And a friend phoned up and said, yeah, there's a crop circle, just which is again probably 10 miles from where we live. So we headed down there, and we heard a sort of funny noise when we were down there, sort of looking down from quite a high viewpoint, and we saw these aliens arriving, and I thought that looks a bit too dodgy for me, and we disappeared very, very quickly. But we hadn't gone very far, and we heard a large noise, and there's sort of flash of lightning as well. And obviously this is what happened. Obviously they crashed their spaceship on the right hand side, and the reason for it, as you see on the advertisement, they should have gone to Specsavers. But you see my little critter in the bottom left hand corner. They're real posers. Often take them a photograph, they'll appear, in the picture. Okay, then working towards one of my qualification, and this is the EFIA diamond. The FIA is the International Federation of Photographic Art, and the E stands for excellent. So normally, basically, to get the sort of the lower rung of the ladders for the FIA qualification, it's not too difficult. Excuse me, I just can have a drink a moment. Yeah, so basically it's based on the number of acceptances in a certain number of countries, and there's no time scale on this, and you can send them off your images all online anywhere in the world, whether it's sort of China, India, America, this country, and it's very easy to actually enter, and it's a good way to actually test your images to see how they get on elsewhere. But say for that first qualification, it's just based on numbers. But for this diamond qualification, you've got to have an award. So whereas in a normal exhibition, about a third of the image, so if you had 3,000 entries, about 1,000 images are accepted, and of those 1,000, about sort of between 5 and 10% can get an award, from highly commended up to gold. But say for this diamond qualification, that I only was interested in actually gaining awards, so it was quite difficult. But it depends on what your expertise is. You haven't got to enter all the sections. Okay,
I do
thank you.
apologise.
That's right. So
I fixed the sound, by the way.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Good. Okay then. So the main ones that people enter is mono and color, but like you say that there are other ones you can actually enter as well: travel, or creative, experimental, photojournalism, nature. So whatever your speciality is, you can just concentrate on that particular exhibition. So these pictures are right across a range. I said all these have gained awards from around the world, and sometimes there's an overlap. You might have an image that, although you can only use it once, it may have got a color award for a color, but a similar image might have been in mono. So you can actually experiment with your pictures in different salons, not in the same country, but other places, just to experiment with your images. So this would have been a color image. This was in natural history. I do admit I'm not a natural history photographer, but I enjoy judging international standard with natural history as well. And again, you can also enter prints. This was actually entered as a print in an exhibition. And so you're not just governed to projected image, but probably about 95% of the exhibitions are actually projected. I do admit I'm a very impatient photographer, and if I can't get my picture very quickly, I normally give up. But this was, again, you see an old army lorry, the back of it, and this dog on the left was posing. So I got some photographs. I knew there was, again, this was quite high up. I knew there was a few other dogs in there, and I just had to wait for the other dog to actually look out so I could get my picture. You'll see a lot of photographs of people. I do a lot of people montages. So again, get very near to them with a 24mm lens, and then cut them out and put them into a suitable backdrop. And again, these characters, they're wonderful to photograph. And you meet such interesting people. And he actually belonged to a camera club in South Birmingham. So again, he was taking photographs at an event. I said, "Oh, can I take your photograph?" And that was it. Also, photographs say right on your doorstep. This was taken at Whitney at an event, and again, I saw this bloke coming along with his family, and sort of talk to the family and said, "Well, you might take a photograph," and ask you, "Is it your dad or whatever?" Just trying to make it a bit more informal before I actually take the picture. There's a lot of war reenactments on local. There's one at Evesham every year, that's a 2-day event. So there's quite a few on in the country. There's some very good ones on the Severn Valley Railway. So all the main sort of railways, private railways, normally run sort of a 40 day. So again, if you're into photographing people and characters, and there's a lot of events to actually go to. And also, I said about my pictures evolve, but this picture started with I know their father and son, the two people on the left, and I had a diagonal line in my picture. Originally, I only had the two of them, and I thought, no, I want somebody to fit. So I looked through my old photograph to find a suitable character to make this diagonal line through the picture. And another thing we talk about at the moment is texture. I love adding textures to an image. All the texture is basically a photograph, and it could be a wallpaper, it could be just a wall, paving slab, tiles, anything like that. You can get, and then you can in Photoshop elements, whatever you're using in layers, put that over the top of your picture, lower the opacities, and do say fairly low percentage, and it will just blend in with your picture. Again, this is a picture that I like to talk about at a club and ask them questions. Maybe you'll sort of shout out at the end, but basically, look round the picture, look at the building in the top right-hand corner. That is basically a plastic model that you put in a fish tank. So, you can get away with murder sometimes because the judge looks around a picture quite quickly. And with this particular picture, the judge is probably just looking at the girl anyway. So, it can make a difference. What I normally like to do, most of the events I go to, I like to give a copy of the picture to the people. And this is, again, another event. I mean, this is right on your doorstep to a certain extent. White Horse event, magical place to go to. Over the years, it's done very well for me because mainly there's so much to photograph. And this particular picture, they were doing sort of local scenes based on sort of pubs and the like. And I sort of spoke to them there. So, cool, can I send you a picture, or if you've got a website? Oh no, it's not up at the moment. And I was I could never find out who they were. So I keep a look at it if I can see them at another event. It might have just been a one-off event for them. And also to mono conversions. Again, you can still make your mono pictures quite creative. For the purist, look at this picture, you say, oh, that doesn't look, you know, a very good conversion for a mono. It looks fairly painterly, but I wanted that feel to the picture. But again, nowadays with the computer, it's a lot easier making mono conversions now than it was a few years ago. Again, another suitable mono conversion is coming up with the idea, and it's attention to detail, which is the key. And with the girl, any of you sort of enter exhibitions, you've seen photographs of this girl, Holly. She used to live, I think, in Aylesbury or in the Oxford area. Now she moved away. She's probably one of the most photographed models, amateur models in the country, with a sort of pre-Raphaelite looking, absolutely superb person to model. But again, with this, I had a picture of her, but I had to find a picture that she was sort of facing the right direction to sort of almost tie in. It's storytelling to a certain extent. Another event, again, not that far from you, the Stowe Horse Fair that's normally held twice a year. And it's a, you know, it's a different way to look at things. They're different culture, and even if you don't take your camera, you know, it's a fantastic day out. You can park in a field just opposite for a fiver, walk in, and just, you know, watch the world go by, basically. I mentioned about reenactors. These two people came from the Birmingham area, reenactors, but and that's the sort of catalyst for my picture. Took a photograph of these two people. Now, what impression did it get? Yeah, they sort of look from a sort of cowboy era. So what I can do, you know, look around the backdrop or through my archive pictures and find pictures of buildings or a desert area that actually sort of ties in with the two characters. Also, I mentioned about Severn Valley Railway. Normally in June and July, there's 2 weekends that follow on. So, and you know, you could spend a week there basically because there is so much going on the railway line that goes from Kidderminster to Bridgnorth. Also, I mentioned about different categories for my images. This actually went into photojournalism, and as with nature, you're not allowed to change or move anything. The backdrop here is one of the colleges in Oxford, out of focus, so that's in that sort of soft look. But this was taken at the sort of Remembrance Day service in Oxford that I go to every year. And this again taken at the same time. Waiting, as I said about using a wide angle lens. In this case, I've actually used a telephoto lens, you know, but just waiting. The sun was hitting her head, and I just wanted her to face her, turn around, and luckily she did. Also, again, you all know, again, living locally, about the history of the repatriation now that's now moved to Bryce Norton and Carterton. And again, I make a sweeping statement that I'll photograph anything, but this is a case where I really struggled. I just didn't want or couldn't photograph the grieving family. You know, could get some good expressions on their faces, but to me, that's out of my remit. I just didn't want to do that. So what I did was looked around, trying to capture, if that's the right word, capture the atmosphere of the event and what's going on, really probably outside of the family to a certain extent. And this is again, it meets the bill for photojournalism. It meets every tick in the box, because anybody seeing this will know what's going on. I suppose you can roughly equate it to a news item in a newspaper, and that's what you're trying to capture. So anybody sees it actually knows what's going on. But also at reenactments, what I do is I go up and down the station, trying to get people's faces and reactions as just before the train goes out almost. But again, when you do that, they're oblivious often to you actually taking the photograph. But I get great delight just banging on the window and sort of making the jump and taking the photograph. Also, again, why most of my pictures are so sharp is that I use Canon lenses. Sorry, Nikon. Um, but one time I went to London, to America, I actually got fed up with all my Canon equipment. It was just too heavy. So I bought a couple of cheap Panasonic Lumix bridge cameras, which the one that I bought, I think FZ200, has got a 25 to 600 mil zoom lens, and f2.8, even at 600 telephoto lens, and it's a Leica lens. It's a fantastic lens, but for that price, the only problem is it's a throwaway camera. It doesn't like dust and it doesn't like rain. So if you've got one, if you don't take it out in those conditions, it will last forever. But also, again, probably it won't last with a lot of use. But the newer ones are about 3 or 4 times the price. But with the bridge cameras, I think the new technology on them are absolutely fantastic. Also, I noticed on your website that you actually got various projects, and this is often I get my sort of individual project, and this is a project on making spheres and to blend in with the picture. So that's all created in Photoshop, but you look around again to find sort of suitable backdrop. And also you can just try these spheres in any build up basically, and find a subject that actually suits it. This was I said about having a knowledge of my images sort of buried in the archives, and this was the case in this particular picture. I had a photograph, this penny farthing I took a few years ago, and I hadn't used it. I couldn't think of a possible use to it. But I wanted to have, there's a competition I wanted to enter called Circles. So I thought, oh yeah, I'll bring that out because everything's sort of circle with the penny farthing. How can I make sort of circle? So originally this started off with flowers. He was sort of delivering the flowers, but eventually I sort of changed the image. So it's just actually circles. This is again, you've seen quite a few pictures tonight already, and this is probably one of my top half dozen favorite images, and basically it's taken in San Francisco in the Bay Area in heavy rain, and that's why the people here were exactly there. It was pouring down with rain. So I thought, yeah, what can I do? So I converted the rain to snow. And if you want to look in my sort of help section on my website, you'll actually see how to make this snow. And it works quite well because a couple of years ago, I wanted to add snow to a newer picture and I'd forgotten how to do it. But what I actually did is went on my website and followed my own instructions, and it actually worked. I was sort of quite really sort of chuffed on that. Also, pictures can be very simple, as I said. Late autumn, early winter tree with few leaves still left on, which are the initial pictures, and I said, well, let's try and incorporate it in a backdrop. So you start off with one element and just try and sort of blend it in with another. And again, how my pictures come about. The picture was exactly the same as you see here. apart from the blue and white house. There wasn't even any buffers at the end of the line. And that's what gave me the idea on this particular pitch. What can I put at the end to sort of tell the story that, that the railway can't go any further. And so I looked around for my, photographs I've had of American houses and came up with this one. Also, sometimes pictures were the original picture I did this of these two dancers didn't work, so I thought I'd try and find something else. And so the theme behind this picture was time. If you look at it, the time on an old snail, the time on the backdrop, and the two reenactors dancing, all linked to time and going back to applying a sort of a grungy backdrop to sort of blend in with the picture. Also, I mentioned about various sections that also this went into the travel section because I've done nothing to the actual image. But why I think the judges actually liked this, I think, although it's not a brilliant picture, why I think I liked it is because of the tree. I think the tree perfectly balances with the smoke. And I think if that tree had been sort of cut down almost, the picture would not have worked. And again, a fairly straightforward photograph, the same locomotive that you saw earlier in the steampunk picture. But a key to, we all think, oh, if the weather's horrible, we won't take a photograph. But the key to this particular picture, it was a horrible day, but I've cut the sky out. The sky was just bland white, cut the sky out. So in fact, there was good sort of reflected light coming into the picture. And so you got, with the sort of steam and the smoke, added to the sort of the atmosphere of the picture.